On July 4th, 2026, our country is marking 2.5 centuries as an independent nation. Over that span of time, the Declaration of Independence has become one of the most influential documents in history. Together, let's celebrate life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Happy 250th birthday, America.
The 250th anniversary of the United States marks 250 years since the Declaration of Independence in 1776. This anniversary is important because it gives us a chance to reflect on how much America has grown and changed over time, both as a country and as a society. It's not just about celebrating, but also thinking more deeply about our history, including both achievements and challenges. It reminds us of important values our country was founded on, like freedom and equality and justice for all. Even though these ideas haven't always been fully achieved, they have continued to shape the country and still matter today. For my generation, it's also a chance to look forward and think about what kind of country we want the United States to become in the near future and far future. It gives us an opportunity to learn from the past and be a part of shaping what comes next.
Very well said, Lila. And while your generation is coming up to make these changes, our generation needs to make these changes in order for the next 250 years of America to be as much of a success and to continue to improve and to be the world leader that we have been. So it's an amazing anniversary to see where America has come from. Puritans that have fled England for religious persecution to come here to America for religious freedoms, and what that's turned into. It's turned into America, the country we love, the land of the free, and it's given us immense opportunities. No other country greater to live in than America.
I'm Al Wakefield. Live in Mendon, Vermont. Been in Vermont now about 30 years or so. And as I think about the last 250 years, a part of which I've lived in and seem to continue to live, born in 1938, and so saw World War II, obviously the end of it. But there's certain things I think that kind of stick out in my mind following that. And one, having grown up in Harlem, New York, and Columbia, South Carolina, one was the, I think, 1994 Supreme Court decision on segregation, desegregating schools and public facilities, and that had a big impact. I was in an all-black school and kind of wondering, in fact, whether tomorrow I'd be in an all-white school, which, growing up in South Carolina and Harlem was a frightening prospect. But that had a big impact. Certainly on the way I think about this country, which I view with mixed emotions, having viewed a lot of its failures and now some successes, but the failures are still obvious and reoccurring every day. I think the second thing that hit me as a black man, particularly growing up in this country, was 1986, 87, when President Obama was elected, and that made all the stuff that we heard about with Brown versus Ferguson and the Civil Rights Act of 68 and the Voting Act of 69, whenever those were, made all those really real to me, that a black man could be elected in this country. And the third thing, which really is still bothering me because it's still occurring in residual ways and in very real ways, were the January 6th riots in Washington and the attack on the Capitol and the obvious intent of the former president and some of his supporters to take over the government. And what's happening right now with respect to trying to diminish the Voting Act of the late 60s, and all that's occurred in terms of advancement, not only for marginalized people, but for people all across the country. And that's all frightening. And so, as I said, I view where we are right now with mixed emotions. I, in fact, would not be sitting here talking to you about any of this where things as they were, 50 to 70 years ago in this country. And so obviously there's been some advancement, and I personally have received the benefit of that, having served in the military, flying planes. But one thing that comes to mind is the march, Montgomery, Alabama, Martin Luther King, in 67, 68, whenever it was. And I was in the military and had just made captain, flying B-52s, protecting the world for democracy, as we said. And came through Selma, Alabama a week after the march across the Pettus Avenue Bridge, and in fact was stoned, shot at, chased, if I had really run very fast or driven very fast, out of town, seeking refuge at the local Air Force base. And so, those kind of personal experiences, along with what's happening in a much larger environment, make me have mixed emotions about where we are. But generally optimistic, although very frightened about where we go from here. But thanks for allowing me the opportunity to comment. I appreciate it.
I feel America's 250th anniversary is not only a celebration, but really a moment that invites reflection. When I think about our history, I'm reminded that the country has always been shaped by ordinary people working together and standing behind their beliefs and behind their values. Watching my 16-month-old son grow and explore his world has made me really think more deeply about the America that he'll inherit one day. I want him to understand where we've come from and how hard we had to work to get here. To know about the courage of those who stood up for their beliefs in the face of overwhelming odds, for the men and women who allow us to enjoy these freedoms every day. I try to remember the values that really have always carried America forward. Perseverance, the power of community, and the belief that all of us have a role in shaping the future of this great country. Looking back on the past 250 years really helps me understand how far we've come, and looking ahead reminds me that our story is still being written. This experiment, while of course still in progress, reminds me that we've come a long way from 1776, but there's always more work to be done to preserve the freedoms that we're also fortunate to enjoy every day. I want to thank PEG TV for allowing me the opportunity to be here today and for this wonderful project. And here's to another 250 years of America.
When I think of the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, the launch of our great nation, my mind often drifts to President John F. Kennedy's inaugural address. Not to perhaps its most enduring words, and so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country. But to the next sentence, my fellow citizens of the world, ask not what America will do for you, but what we can do together for the freedom of man. In the joy of this historic moment, we must not lose sight of the huge impact our nation and its worldwide footprint has had on so many fronts, and the continuing responsibilities that go with those achievements. And we must, as a nation, not forget that there are many men, women, and children throughout the world whose lives are not blessed with the same freedom and the same opportunity as we Americans. Happy 250th anniversary to all of you.
Democracy is an ongoing experiment in how we, with different experiences and beliefs, choose to share power and resources. Our democracy is the container where we make sense of one another as the concept of we the people continues to expand. At 250 years, the question is how a system built for many perspectives keeps working as more are added, and how do we hold complexity without losing cohesion? And how do we expand participation while still finding common ground? To me, democracy is less about perfect agreement and more about the ongoing responsibility of learning how to share a future.
As we approach the 250th anniversary of the founding of the United States, we are called not just to celebrate, but to reflect, to recognize how precious democracy is and how fragile it has always been. In generations past, we stood together to confront fascism and authoritarianism abroad. We rallied, united, to defend democracy overseas. But today, the call is closer. Today, we must come together to defend democracy here at home. I believe our country stands at a precipice. The questions before us are not abstract, they are urgent. Will we allow our nation to drift towards authoritarianism? Or will we stand up for the Constitution? Stand up for the rule of law? Stand up for equal justice for all? Will we stand up for democracy? These are not just words, they have never been. The Declaration of Independence was not empty rhetoric. The Constitution was not crafted as a symbolic gesture. They were and remain a promise, a commitment, a challenge. From the very beginning, our founding mothers and fathers understood something essential. The power of the people must always outweigh the power of the few, and that democracy survives only when people insist that it does. They knew democracy would not be easy. They knew it would not be perfect, but they chose it anyway because they knew it would be worth it. Now, 250 years later, that choice is ours. Thank you.
When America was founded 250 years ago, monarchies were the rule and republics were the exception. And now, 250 years later, republics are the rule and monarchies are the exception. And I hope in another 250 years, the United States can still be a beacon for democracy, fairness, and equality throughout the world. Back when the Statue of Liberty was dedicated, there was a poem written called The New Colossus by Emma Lazarus that's inscribed in the pedestal. And among many excellent parts of that poem is the line that the United States is the mother of exiles. It is a place where people who did not feel like they fit in the old world order could come and build a life for themselves. Frankly, I think that is the shining example of what is best about America in its 250 years. People from any walk of life can come here, be a part of a greater community than themselves, eventually maybe even run for president or run for something else. It's a complicated thing, I think, to be an American in the world. There's plenty of different observations and criticisms that people can lobby at the United States, fair or otherwise. But I am very proud to be an American, and I think embracing the excellent things about being an American, our friendliness, our warmness, our ability to work with any people in diverse situations, sets us out from the world and gives us a lot of internal strength. And remembering that gives me a lot of hope for the future as well.
As a seventh-generation American, in my 70th year, I have recently come to appreciate a fundamental aspect of our democracy. I had thought that this country's founders came together in a harmonious way. I now understand that conflict is the basis of our democracy. Congress and our legislatures were established as the place to welcome opposing viewpoints, the place to hear all sides, the place to fight it out with words, where the majority in power should welcome those with whom they disagree. When voices are silenced, that is when we all lose. Do not be afraid to speak up. Our democracy depends on it.
Happy semi-quincentennial, fellow Americans, recent immigrants, and visitors. And yes, I had to Google how to pronounce that word. I have been fortunate enough to drive on some of the smallest roads in the tiniest towns of all the lower 48 states. Over tens of thousands of miles as I got to move from one unique city to the next. I have encountered kindness and natural beauty in every single place I went, without exception. That is why I feel so lucky to have been born in the United States. And I hope in the next 250 years, our nation continues to honor all of her hardworking and gentle people who make every side road worth driving down.
As we approach the 250th birthday of the United States, we are invited to reflect not just on where we've been, but on who we are called to be. 250 years ago, a bold vision was set forth that all people are created equal, that every person has inherent dignity, and that opportunity should belong to everyone. It was an aspirational vision, one we are still striving toward today. At Rutland Neighbors, a day shelter located at 60 Strongs Avenue in Rutland, Vermont, we see that aspiration lived out every day. Because the promise of this country is not fulfilled in documents alone. It is fulfilled in how we treat one another. When someone walks through our doors, cold, hungry, or unsure of where they will sleep, we are given a choice. Do we look away or do we lean in? At Rutland Neighbors, we lean in. We offer a warm meal, a cup of coffee, a warm blanket, and also something deeper. We offer dignity. We offer belonging. We say, you matter. You are not invisible. You are our neighbor. This is what democracy looks like at its most human level. Not in grand gestures, but in everyday acts of care and connection. As we mark 250 years as a nation, we must ask ourselves, are we living into that promise? Because there are still neighbors among us who are left out. People living outside, families searching for stability and hope. However, at Rutland Neighbors, there is something powerful happening. There are volunteers who show up, donors who give faithfully, a community that believes in caring for one another and believes in neighbors. This is what gives me hope. That even after 250 years later, we are still striving to widen the circle of who belongs. So as we celebrate this milestone, let us not only look back, but look forward. Because the next chapter of America's story is being written right now, every day, here in Rutland. In places like this, where compassion is practiced, where dignity is restored, and where neighbors truly sustain neighbors.
When I think of America's 250th anniversary, I think back to a moment just after moving here where I felt a sense of wonder come over me as I watched the sunset over the mountains. A sense that even living in a new place where I didn't know many people, if I worked hard and treated people well, then I could create a life for myself. I often wonder if that's how my great-grandfather felt when he brought our family here to this great land. It's been over a decade since that moment, and I still feel the same way. The true spirit of the American dream is found in the average hardworking folks caring for their neighbors, with dignity and respect no matter what walk of life they come from. It's in everyone looking for the opportunity to find a place where they belong, where they can provide a better life for their children than they had, and where people can take control of their destiny to live the life they choose to live. I'm proud to say I'm an American. Happy birthday, America.
My first rally was January 21st, 2017. The women's rally in Montpelier protesting restrictions on women's rights. There was this little voice inside me and it was deeply conflicted. I could have certainly stayed home and continued to bemoan the state of the nation and the attacks on democracy. It was, after all, just a Tuesday in the middle of January in Vermont. But the voice came again, and it said, if you are so concerned about what is happening in your country, then get up and do something about it. So I did. I loaded the kids in the car and off we went, not knowing what to expect and feeling nervous. We joined 15,000 other people that day in our little state who heard their voices to heed the call to activism. With limited access to real news, the whittling away of our rights is defined by the Constitution. The threats to our civil liberties, it is very easy to become overwhelmed and feel a deep sense of loss, our sense of community. This regime wants you to feel hopeless. We are not. We have a voice that cannot be taken. Action is the antidote to despair. There is an action for everyone. Create a sign to tell your story and join a protest or a rally. Lend your voice to others across the country by volunteering through a postcard event. Join an action team. Learn how to become a nonviolent, peaceful demonstrator. Call your state representatives and share your concerns. They really do want to hear from you. Share your social media posts. Every time you do, we are one step closer to change. Talk with your friends and family. It's okay that we have differing views. If you don't, your circle is too small. Run for office, from your local school board to the State House, or support someone who is running. Give your voice to others who cannot speak to defend their rights. Defend persons of color. Defend migrant workers. Defend asylum seekers. Defend our immigrant neighbors who are in fact here legally. Defend our mothers, our sisters, and our daughters. Defend our national parks and environmental protections. Defend our right to due process. Defend our right to vote. Defend our right to free speech. Defend democracy. Small actions create big waves of democracy. On the 250th birthday of our nation, what will you be doing when your voice needs to be heard?